Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope every one of you is doing well. So the topic that we are going to discuss today is, let's start off with, let me adjust the focus and resolution first. Okay, so the topic is, let's start off with topic place value. So we have already learned about this topic in our previous classes, but it's a very quick revision of this topic. So suppose if I write a number 123.24, right? So definitely it's a decimal number, because this part is the whole number and this is the decimal number. So what we'll do is we'll just write out the place name and value of each of these numbers. So first of all, this is the ones digit, right? This is called the ones digit, and the place value is 1. And as we have the number 3 here, so the actual value of this place is 1 into 3, which is equals to 3, but the place value is 1. Now for the second one, the place name of this digit is tens, the place value is 10, and the digit here we have is 2, so the place value of 2 here is 20. Now we all know that the third digit here is the place name is hundreds. So definitely what we'll do is just a 10 will increase with the previous number, so it will be 100, and we have the digit 1 here, so the place value here is 100, right? So this goes for the whole number part. Now what for the decimal part, right? Decimal places have their own names and place values. So to start off with, so this one, this is called the tenths, not tens, tenths, 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 and the place value for tenths is 1 by 10. That is why it's called tenths. And the digit we have here is 2, so what we'll do is we'll multiply the digit with the place value into 2. Now if we multiply a fraction with a whole number, the numerator and this whole number gets multiplied and divided by the denominator, sorry. So 2 into 1 divided by 10, or 2 by 10. So this is the place value for the tenths place. And now for the second digit of the decimal place value, it's called hundredths. So you see in the whole number section, it starts, the place name or value starts with ones, tens and hundreds onwards, but for the decimal place values, the first digit is not the ones, it's the tenths, then hundreds, then thousands, and then it goes on like this. So this is the hundreds, DREDTHS. So the place value is 1 by 100, just the opposite of the whole number, 1 by 100, and the digit we have here is 4, so it is 4 by 100, right? So this goes for the place value. Now for this section we will only learn about multiplying or dividing any number with 0.1 and 0.001. So to start that off, we need to learn another thing before that, is what if we multiply or divide any whole or decimal number by 10, 100, 1000, 10,000 and so on, right? So these are a special kind of numbers. If you look at it, 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, so what happens is in each step we are increasing a 0, hence the value of the number increases, but the first digit is always the same, that is 1. So what happens when we multiply or divide a whole or a decimal number with these numbers? So let's start off with the multiplication and with the whole number. Suppose we are multiplying a whole number 2 with 10, 2 with 100, or 2 with 1000, right? So what happens is, there is a very easy way to do it, is just add the zero at the end of the just add the zero, how many zeros are there at the end of or at the right side of the whole number here. So 2 into 10 is 20, 2 into 100 is 200, and 2 into 1000 is 2000. So if you look for the pattern, you see that the number of zeros I have here, I'll just add that zero with this 2 here, right? So this is called multiplying a whole number, and this 2 is a whole number, right? This is a whole number. Now what if we multiply a decimal number with these series numbers? So let's write a decimal number first. Suppose 2.2, right? So multiplying with 10, 2.2 multiplying with 100, 2.2 multiplying with 1000, right? What happens? See, so the shortcut way of doing it is, we have a decimal point here, right? So we will just, when we are multiplying, that means basically the number is increasing in its value. So the decimal, if the decimal point goes to the right or shifts to the right, the value basically increases. And how do we shift it to the right? Depending on the number of zeros here, right? So in the first multiplication 10, I have 1 0 here, so that the decimal place will move to one place to the right. So now it becomes 22. In the second example, second multiplication, I have 2 zeros here, right? So the decimal point will move 2 places to the right. So it has only one place to the right. So it has already moved one place. Now it has to move another place, but there is no value or no digit there. So in order to fill up that gap, we will write a 0 there. So it becomes 220. As for the third multiplication, I have 3 zeros here. So the decimal place will go shift 3 places to the right. So this after the decimal point, it has only one digit. So let me just write out the first digit, and now it needs to move 2 places to the right more, but I have no digits after it. So what I will do is, I have 2 vacant places and I have to fill up that places with 2 zeros. Now it is 2200. So you see 2.2 and 2200. Definitely 2200 is much bigger than 2.2 because I have multiplied it with 1000. So this is what happened when I am dividing these series of numbers with whole number and decimal number. Now what if I'm dividing, right? Now let us the turn for dividing. Suppose I'm dividing the same number 2 here with 10, dividing the same number with 100, dividing the same number with 1000. Now what happens here is, while we are dividing, which means is the value is decreasing, right? Its value is shrinking or decreasing. So if any decimal point moves to the right, it means the value is increasing, and if the decimal point is shifting to the left, that means the value is decreasing, right? And as we are dividing, so the decimal place will go to the left place, but in the same manner, how it will move to the left place depending on the number of zeros we have here. So here I have 1 0, 2 zeros and 3 zeros, and how it will go, we will always remember that there is a decimal point at the right of any whole number, but it is invisible in a way that putting a decimal point after a whole number is it carries no value. Suppose if I write 2.0, it is basically 2, the same thing. So we don't need to just write extra we don't need to write extra point and a 0 here. So 2.2 basically means 2. So there is always a decimal point after a whole number. So now as I have 1 0 here, and as I am dividing, the decimal point from here will go to one place to the left. So there was 2 here first. Now from the decimal point from here will go one place to the left, and it will go here. So 0.2. In the second division, I have 2 zeros here. So let me first write down the digit. So the decimal point was here, right? So it will move 2 places to the left. So I have, if I go from here, so this is the decimal point from here, move to one place, and then it will move to another place, right? But what happens here is there is a vacant space, right? But I need to fill that up with something, and that something is a digit, and that digit is 0. So write a 0 here and then put the decimal point here. So see, the decimal point from here move to 1 and 2 places, and here is the decimal point, and there was a vacant space which I have filled up with a 0. Now can you pause this video and think about this one? What will happen here is, let me just write down the digit first too. I have 3 zeros here, so the decimal point from here will move to 3 places to the left. I have only one digit, so I need to fill up 2 more digits, which I will do with 2 zeros and then put a decimal point here. So this is what happens when you divide a whole number with these series of numbers. Now I will do the same thing, divide, but for a decimal number. Let's take this example, 2.2. 2.2 divided by 10, 2.2 divided by 100, 2.2 divided by 1000, right? Same thing. As I'm dividing, the decimal place will go to the left according to the number of zeros here. So in the first instance, I have 1 0, 2 zeros, and in the third instance, I have 3 zeros. So the decimal place point will move to the left depending on the number of zeros I have here. So I have only 1 0 here, so this decimal point will move from here to here. So now it will be 0.22. Let me write it with a different color, 0.22, right? In the second instance, the decimal point will move 2 places to the left, but I have only one place here, one digit here, so I need to fill up another digit with 0. So 0, 2, 2, and now the decimal point. And in the third division, I have 3 zeros, so decimal point from here will move to 3 places to the left, but I have only one digit, so there are 2 vacant spaces which I need to fill up with 2 zeros. So 0, 0, and the rest of the digits, 2, 2, and the decimal point moves here, right? So this is what happens when I am dividing or multiplying any whole or decimal number with this series of numbers. Now why do I need to do it? Because the topic that we are going to do over here today is multiplying or dividing, multiply or divide any whole or decimal number with 0.1 and 0.01, right? This is our main topic to discuss here today. So let me first multiply a whole number with 0.1 and 0.01. So let's take a number, suppose let's take a number 2 and then multiply it with 0.1. Now how do we do it? One way of doing it is I can transform this decimal number into a fraction, and as we already learned in the previous section that this is a decimal number, right? And I have one digit after the decimal point, which is basically the 10th place, and if I want to write it in a form of a fraction, what I can do is 2 into 0.1 basically means 1 by 10, as we have studied here. If you see this 10th place here, the place value is 1 by 10, and we had the digit 2 here, that is why it was 2 by 10. But as we have here 0.1, so this is the 10th place, and I'll write it as 1 by 10. there is another very it's not an orthodox way of doing it, but it's very easy to understand. Whenever we want to transform any decimal number to a fraction, what we'll do is just write down the first non-zero digit here in the numerator of a fraction, and then in the denominator what we'll do is, for the decimal point, put a 1, and after the decimal point count how many digits are there, fill it up with number of zeros there. So this is one way of doing it. So now 2 into 1 by 10 is basically 2 by 10. We don't need to further simplify it. If you just keep it here like this, this is the multiplication value when we are multiplying 2 with 0.1. Now what if I'm multiplying 2 with 0.01, right? Same thing. Now I have the 1 in the hundredths place. So if I want to transform it to the as a fraction, what I will do is first write down the non-zero digit in the numerator of the fraction, and now what I will write here in the denominator. The shortcut way is, here was a decimal point. For the decimal point, write a 1 here and count how many digits after it. So 1, 2, right? So put 2 zeros here. In the first instance there was only 1 digit, so I filled it up with 1 0. In the second instance there was 2 digit, there is 2 digits, so I'm filling it up with 2 zeros. Now if I further multiply it, a whole number with a fraction, the numerator and this 2 multiplies itself. 2 into 1 basically means 2 by 100. So now I have multiplied 0.1 and 0.01 with a whole number. Now let's try it with a decimal number. 2.2, right? 2.2 into 0.1. So now how will we do it, right? So one way of doing it is, write 2.2 here and then transform this into a fraction. So 1 by 10, right? And now if I further simplify it, 2.2 multiplies with 1, so it basically is 2.2 divided by 10. Now is the maths finished here? No, because I already know if I am dividing any decimal number with 10, that means as I'm dividing, the decimal point will go to the left, and how many places it will go to the left depending on the number of zeros here. I have only 1 0 here, so this decimal point will move 1 place to the left, and the answer will be 0.22. Now let us divide and multiply with 0.01. So write 2.2 as it was. Now write this decimal point as a fraction, so it is 1 by 100. As we further simplify it, 2.2 gets multiplied with 1, so it is 2.2, then divided by 100, right? And the same thing, as I'm dividing with 100, so I have 2 zeros here, so basically this decimal point will move 2 places to the left, but it has only 1 digit, so there is another vacant place, and I will fill it up with 1 0. So write the zeros first and the rest of the digits, and then put the decimal point on the extreme left. So that is how we have multiplied a whole number. This was the whole number, and this was the decimal number with 0.1 and 0.01. And the same thing that we are going to do is dividing now. Let's do an example for dividing. Just one example, and I'll leave you with to brainstorm to solve the next ones. Okay, now if we divide a whole number 2 divided by 0.1. Now first thing is 2 divide, then transform this decimal into a fraction. It goes like this, 1 by 10. Now we have studied in our previous class, or basically in our primary years, that we cannot ever divide a whole number and a fraction, but what we can do is we can always multiply a whole number and a fraction. So there is a process of doing it. If we want to change this division into a multiplication, this divisor here takes its reciprocal form. Reciprocal form means it inverses, reverses or inverses, whatever you want to say. So it means basically 2 into, see, I have changed this division into a multiplication, but I cannot do it as my own wish. What I need to do is, if I want to transform this division sign into a multiplication sign, this fraction here reverses. So the numerator becomes the denominator and the denominator becomes the numerator. So it becomes 10 by 1. 10 by 1 basically means 1, because if you divide any number with 1, it basically remains the same. So 2 into 10 and it is 20. Now if I divide 2 with 0.01, same thing, write 2 here, put the division sign. Now transform this decimal into a fraction, so it is 1 by 100. And now what next? A whole number and a fraction cannot be divided, so I need to change this division sign into a multiplication sign. But if I want to change it to a multiplication sign, this fraction reverses, so it becomes 100. Now 2 into 100 is 200. So this is how we do it, and I want to leave you with the last thing, which is dividing a whole number and a decimal number with 0.1 and 0.01. I need you guys to think about it, brainstorm and come up with a solution. Okay, thank you so much for bearing with me. I hope this video helps you well to understand this concept. Take care everyone.